If you've ever felt guilty for thinking about hiring help around the house, this video is for you. Because here's what I want you to hear first. Outsourcing your chores doesn't make you a bad mom. It might actually make you a better one. When you're juggling work, kids, and everything in between, the never-ending pile of laundry, the question of what's for dinner, the floors that somehow always need sweeping, it stops being just a to-do list. It starts feeling like a weight you carry every single day. So today I want to talk about why letting go of some of that isn't laziness or necessarily a luxury. It's a decision that more moms should feel free to make. We'll get into when it makes sense, how to think about it practically, and why the real payoff isn't just a cleaner house. It's showing up with more energy for the people who actually need you. Before we get into the when and how, I want to say something I wish someone had told me earlier. Outsourcing does not have to be all or nothing. When people hear the word outsourcing, they sometimes picture hiring everything out at the highest level all the time. A housekeeper 5 days a week, takeout every night, grocery delivery on a subscription. And if that's not in your budget or your lifestyle, it can feel like the conversation doesn't apply to you. But that's not really how it has to work. You can scale it. You can adjust it to your season, your budget, and what's actually weighing on you right now. Maybe outsourcing looks like hiring a cleaner once a month, not every week. Maybe it looks like a meal kit on the weeks when things get hectic, not as a permanent replacement for cooking. Maybe it's using a wash and fold laundry service during a crunch month, and then letting it go when things calm down. The goal isn't to outsource everything. The goal is to outsource strategically, to find the places where getting a little help gives you back the most time, energy, and peace of mind. I think about it less like a lifestyle overhaul and more like a tool. You pull it out when you need it, and knowing it's there, even if you're not using it every week, can take some of the pressure off all on its own. So if you've been dismissing this idea because you thought it meant going all in, I hope this reframes it a little bit. We're talking about small, intentional decisions that add up. So how do you know when it's actually time to start outsourcing? Here are some of the signs I look for, and a few I've personally experienced. The first one is when chores start feeling physically draining. Not just annoying, actually exhausting. Deep cleaning bathrooms, scrubbing floors, moving furniture, getting into all the hard to reach spots. That's a lot of physical work on top of a full day of everything else. If you're already running on empty by the time the weekend rolls around, and the thought of tackling the house feels like too much, that's a real signal. Those bigger tasks keep getting pushed back, not because you're lazy, but because your body and brain are already tapped out. That's worth paying attention to. The same thing can happen with meals. If figuring out what to cook, shopping for the ingredients, and making sure everyone has food every single night starts to feel like a drain, not just a chore, but something that genuinely depletes you, that's a sign that some support in that area would actually help. The second sign is when things keep falling to the bottom of your list, and they stay there. Maybe you keep telling yourself you'll deep clean this weekend or you'll get ahead on meal planning next week. But things never really slow down and the tasks just keep waiting for you in the background, taking up mental space, even when you're not actively doing them. That mental load is real and it's exhausting in a way that's hard to explain to someone who hasn't felt it. Your house might be at a functional level of clean, but the deeper tasks are always looming. Dinner is always getting figured out at the last minute. And even when you're resting, you're not really resting because the list is still running in the back of your mind. The third sign is when you realize your time is genuinely better spent somewhere else. This one is the most personal and it's also the one that gets dismissed the most because somehow saying I'd rather spend that time with my kids or I need that time to rest feels like an excuse rather than a reason. But your time is limited. You don't get more of it. And you get to decide what it's worth spending time on. For some people, getting back the hours they would have spent cleaning or cooking is worth every dollar. Not because they don't value a clean house or a home-cooked meal, but because they value presence and energy, and being able to show up without running on fumes. And the fourth one, honestly the one that motivated me, is when it's causing stress. When you look around your house and feel behind or overwhelmed or irritated, when dinner time feels like a pressure point, when your environment is affecting your mood, your patience, your relationships. Sometimes the problem isn't just the cleaning or the cooking itself. It's the weight of constantly thinking about it. And that weight doesn't go away just because you push through. Sometimes the only way to actually put it down is to hand it off to someone else. Okay, so let's say you're nodding along and thinking, yeah, some of this resonates, but you're not sure if it actually makes financial sense for you. I want to walk through a framework I find really helpful here because I think a lot of people skip this step and either assume it's unaffordable or just go by their gut feeling. Start with your hourly rate at work, whatever you make per hour or what you'd calculate it to be if you're salaried. That number matters here because your time has a real dollar value even outside of work. Then figure out how much time you currently spend on the chores you're thinking about outsourcing. Let's say you spend about 20 hours a month on cleaning, and your hourly rate at work is $25 an hour. That means in terms of your time's value, you're spending about $500 a month on cleaning. Now get a quote for the service you're considering. Let's say a cleaning service comes in once a month and handles about half of your cleaning for $200. If you divide that by 50% to find what it would cost to cover all your cleaning, you get about $400 a month for full coverage. So $400 to outsource completely versus $500 worth of your time to do it yourself. In that scenario, outsourcing actually costs you less when you count your time as having value. Now I want to be clear, this math won't always work out this neatly, and it also doesn't account for everything. If paying for help would genuinely stretch you too thin, it's not the right time, and that's okay. There's no guilt in that. It took me about 5 years of solid career growth before outsourcing felt financially comfortable for our family. I had plenty of nights where I worked all day, studied in the evenings, and still had to handle everything at home. Doing it all yourself is sometimes just where you are. But running the numbers, actually looking at what your time costs, can make the conversation feel less like a luxury and more like a real decision. And as your life changes, keep revisiting it. The math that doesn't work today might look very different in a year or two. So let's talk specifically about cleaning, since that's often the first place people think about when they consider outsourcing. The most common entry point is hiring someone to do a deep clean periodically, once a month, once every other month, depending on your budget and your household. What this does is it keeps your home from getting to that point where everything feels out of control before you've even realized it. A regular baseline makes it so much easier to maintain things in between. But it doesn't have to be that structured either. I mentioned this earlier, but there are also wash and fold laundry services you can use on an as-needed basis, not as a standing appointment, but as a resource you pull out during a busy week or a demanding month. Knowing that option exists, even if you only use it a few times a year, can take a surprising amount of pressure off. The key with cleaning is to identify the tasks that feel the heaviest, the ones you keep putting off, the ones that drain you the most, and start there. You don't have to outsource all of it. Start with the one thing that would make the biggest difference and see how it feels. Food is the other big one, and it tends to be a daily pressure point in a way that cleaning really isn't. The dinner question, what are we eating? Do we have the ingredients? When am I going to make it? Is something that working moms deal with every single day. And when you're tired, that question can feel enormous. There's a full spectrum of options here, and the right answer looks different for everyone. On one end, you have fully home-cooked meals from scratch. On the other, you have takeout or full meal delivery services. And in the middle, there's a range of things. Meal kits, grocery deliveries, simple repeat meals, batch cooking on the weekends, that can take some of the planning and decision-making off your plate without going all the way to the most expensive option. Meal kits, for example, are often cheaper than regular takeout and still take a lot of the mental work out of dinner. The planning, the shopping, the what do we even have in the fridge problem. They're not for everyone, but for some people, they hit a really useful middle ground. Grocery delivery is another one that can quietly make a big difference. If you're spending an hour a week at the store, that's 4 hours a month you could get back. It's often not as expensive as people think, too, and the time savings can be significant. The point isn't to find the right answer. It's to find what actually supports your life. For one person, takeout 2 nights a week is totally worth it. For someone else, the same easy meals on repeat is enough to take the pressure off. For another, a meal kit a couple times a week is the sweet spot. There's no formula that works for everybody, and that's actually freeing once you stop trying to do it the right way. One more thing I want to touch on is that outsourcing doesn't have to be a permanent decision. And I think remembering that makes it feel a lot more accessible. Think about the seasons of life that are particularly full, a demanding stretch at work, postpartum recovery, a big family transition, a season where you're traveling more, a time when something hard is happening and you just need to get through it. Those are moments when bringing in some extra help can make a real difference. Not forever, just for now. Just to get through it with a little less strain. And then when things ease up, you can pull back. Maybe you hire a cleaner for 3 months during a crunch season and then let it go. Maybe you use a meal kit heavily for a season and then transition back to cooking when you have more bandwidth. The flexibility is the point. I think a lot of moms wait until they're completely overwhelmed before they consider asking for help. But sometimes the best time to get support is before you hit that wall, when you can see the busy season coming and make a proactive choice instead of a desperate one. You don't have to earn the right to get help. You don't have to be at your absolute limit. Being in a full season of life is enough. I want to quickly mention something that doesn't get talked about enough in this conversation, and that's delegating at work. Because the mental load that working moms carry doesn't stop at the front door. A lot of us take on more at work than we need to, either because we want to be helpful, because we feel like it's easier to just do it ourselves, or because somewhere along the way we learn that saying yes is what makes us valuable. But if something can be handled by someone else, delegate it. Hold on to things that actually need your attention, your judgment, your specific skills, and let go of the rest. I found that getting better at delegating at work has made me more effective, not less. It's not about doing less, it's about being intentional about where your effort actually goes. And that's the same philosophy that applies to chores, to cooking, and all of it. You're not the only person who can do everything. And the sooner you stop trying to prove otherwise, the more energy you'll have for the things that actually matter to you. So here's the bottom line. The real question isn't whether you can do it all yourself. Most of the time you probably can. The better question is whether you want to spend your time and energy on all of it, and whether doing so is actually serving you and your family. Outsourcing isn't about being unable to keep up. It's about being intentional. It's about looking honestly at where your time and energy are going and deciding that some of those things are worth handing off so you can show up more fully in the places that matter most. It took me years to get comfortable with that. After years of doing everything myself and wearing it like a badge. And when I finally started letting some of it go, I didn't feel less like a mom. I felt like a better one. You're not a bad mom for wanting help. You're a mom who knows her limits, and that's actually one of the best things you can model for your kids. Thanks so much for watching. If this resonated with you, I'd love it if you left a comment. I always love hearing from you. And if you found it helpful, a like or a subscribe means a lot. I'll see you in the next video.